All right, so today we're here in Sarasota, Florida at Congressman Stubbe's office in District 17. We have SP5 Joe Reynolds. You were born in Inwood, Manhattan
Yep.
on March 8th, 1943, where you were raised around a family business. You went to Power Memorial Academy High School. After graduating from there, you went to St. John's University,
Yep.
where you were in the National Guard.
I joined the National Guard in senior year to get a 2S deferment so I wouldn't go to Vietnam.
Gotcha. So then after that, you have a very interesting story that we're going to get into, but you went into the regular Army later and you volunteered for Vietnam.
Right. I quit the National Guard, which you couldn't really do in those days but there were no computers. So I quit the National Guard, and maybe a month later I realized I'm in trouble. So I joined the Army, and the computers never kicked up that I was already in the military.
Right.
So, and then I went to basic training in Fort Dix. I inducted at the Fort Dix, went down to Fort Hood, Texas to do basic training and AIT, and then I was assigned as a company clerk, 1st 13th, 1st Armored Division, Fort Hood, Texas. And I spent maybe 6-8 months there. And unfortunately, we had an incident there, now that I think about it, that kind of pushed me to want to get out of there. They had a recruit take his life. And there was a lot of congressional investigations going on, and it was not a good time in the war effort, and so I decided to put a request in for duty in Vietnam, which wasn't really too smart a thing to do. I wasn't really thinking it clearly, but I did, and 30 days later after I put in the request, I was sent home for leave, and then I ended up in Fort Lewis, Washington.
And then you were there you said for about like...
No, well, Fort Lewis was where the induction center where you would be shipped out to Vietnam.
Mm-hmm. And then once you came back from Vietnam, you went back to Fort Lewis?
Yes, and a discharge from Fort Lewis.
Okay. And then after that, you went back home to Inwood, and you became part of the family business, where you opened up several taverns across the Bronx, the Queens, and Manhattan. Right?
Yeah.
Until
I came back and I started working in the neighborhood bar, the Gary Owen, great little Irish pub, and very neighborhood-oriented, very sports-oriented and that. But then eventually my father, I talked him into renovating his bar in the Bronx, which was a huge hit. It used to be called Joe and Pat's Corner, and then we called it the Unicorn Pub with the Irish twist on it, and it was hugely successful. Then we bought another one in the Bronx, and my two brothers, Tom and John, joined me there, and we had a lot of fun. We were single. It was a roaring time, good time.
And then when did you meet your wife?
I met her in the bar in the Unicorn in the pub in the Bronx. We got married in Holy Family Church, and we had 4 kids, and it was good.
Nice.
Life was good.
And then in 2020, you guys decided to retire and come down here after you worked at the country club?
In the interim, I got divorced.
Oh, okay.
And then I remarried my present wife, Arlene, and then we're married 17 years now, coming up in another week. And then my job in the country club was drying up. She had already quit her job as a manager in a restaurant in Westchester, and that's when we decided to come to Florida, to Nokomis on the West Coast.
And since then, you've been part of a few veterans organizations, American Legion.
Basically, the American Legion.
Post 159, right?
Post 159 in Venice.
In Venice. And you're part of the Honor Guard with that.
I'm with the Honor Guard, and we're doing 3-4 burials a week. It's an honor to do it. Sarasota National Cemetery is very well run cemetery. It's beautiful, and my wife and I, Arlene, will be buried there. So, which I hadn't planned on. Originally, I was going to get buried at St. Raymond's in the Bronx, but Sarasota National Cemetery is beautiful. And
yeah.
It's and the Patriot Plaza next to it with all those stories about veterans. It's a $2 million with outdoor art. It's a great place to, after a burial, to go and have family reunions in the plaza there and talk. And
It's a very nice place.
it's a beautiful place, and I recommend it to anybody. But I got very involved in being a Patriot Plaza guide because it was an honor to tell veteran stories as you toured the Patriot Plaza. Children, schools came there, retired organizations came there, regular tourists came there. It's a very popular spot. And the history there, the veteran history there is huge. Every branch of service is represented there. They have a 2,800 seating capacity. They have an amphitheater there. It's a wonderful place to share veteran stories. And I was honored to be a guide there.
Nice. So let's talk a little bit about how you grew up. What was it like growing up in Inwood, Manhattan?
Inwood was a great neighborhood. No cars. Everybody walked. There were 72 bars in my neighborhood, which is not something to brag about, but that's what it was in those days. 72 in Inwood alone. And very sports-oriented, touch football, tackle, baseball, street hockey, stickball games. Schoolyard was a very active place. Softball games. It was a very immigrant-oriented neighborhood, mostly Irish, Jewish, from Europe. And it was booming. And when I got out of the service in '67, ironically, within 7-10 years, it had changed pretty dramatically. But at that time, it was a bustling immigration hub. And everybody from Europe was tavern-oriented. Mm-hmm. You went there to get a job, to trade gossip, meet girls, jukebox, no internet, no TV to speak of. And it was a great place of camaraderie. And hospitality was a huge factor in Inwood as far as restaurants and that, because they were the European owners, English and Irish, and that were very family-oriented and very welcoming. And the hospitality industry was booming there. And everybody had their favorite bar to go to, their favorite softball team. So when the Vietnam era came, it was a very patriotic neighborhood, very patriotic. And unfortunately, I lost 10 friends there, neighborhood guys. My cousin, Lieutenant Richard Peter Reynolds, was a Marine. He was killed in an ambush. Another friend of mine, Larry Ryan, was killed there in high school, and 10 other people. And we took it pretty seriously there. But we didn't quite realize how bad it was going. Mm-hmm. But the bar scene, they actually had a movie come out. Now that I think about it, the greatest beer run ever. It was written by Joanna Malloy and Chicky Donahue, and he came back from Vietnam, and years later, the story was, and it was factual, that he was challenging the bar, and Bill Murray plays the part of the bartender, mm-hmm. challenging Chicky Donahue, my friend, to go to Vietnam and bring beer to the friends over there. He did it. Took him 3 months on a steamer to get there. He went there, and the story just unfolds from there. Crowe, what's the name? The actor, Russell Crowe's in it, Bill Murray. But what I'm saying is the camaraderie and the humor in the neighborhood at the time, and for him to self-publish the book, mm-hmm. really gives you the dynamics of what the neighborhood was like. Yeah, it was just everybody walked with no cars. It was everybody knew everybody knew your phone number. There was no L096939 was my neighborhood, my mother's number. I knew it like it was yesterday. And in fact, I gave it to Colonel Sutherland when he rotated for Vietnam. I never asked him for any favors. I never asked anybody for any favors over there. And when he's on the tarmac leaving, helicopter, he said, "Joe, would you like me to call anybody when you get home?" I said, "Colonel, no, he's getting on a helicopter." Took out a little pad and he wrote my mother's number down. He gets back, and I guess maybe a week later, he calls my mother. Phone rings, "Oh, it's Colonel Sutherland." My mother passes out. She thought it was lucky there was somebody in the apartment there. They calmed her down, and he said, No, I'm just letting you know your son's a great guy to work with, and blah, blah, blah. So, a little bit of humor blended in with me going AWOL, but the neighborhood at the time was great. And the biggest thing, it was a neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And today, young people get married and they move out. And that's what happened with Inwood. Everybody wanted to get out of the tenements and move to the suburbs and that. So that ended that story. But I had a successful run there as a restaurant owner in the city in New York too, my two brothers. And it was a post-military service was good. But I always had this thing in my mind, why was I so lucky? And, there's always a little bit of guilt in the sense that when you get older, you realize that your camaraderie and you're being cocky and foolish and, you got away with it. But I was a little bit older than the average guy, too. I was 23 at the time, college grad. And that's why when you think about it, you're college grad, everybody thinks you're a genius. So they say, can you type? Oh, yeah, I can type. I couldn't type a lick. But I knew when I got over there, things were not good. I was going to go to a field unit, which was a combat zone. And I said, whoa, this isn't good. And all of a sudden, my orders would change because I said I could type and I had a secret clearance. So luck. And whereas my friends didn't have such good luck. So when I got back, I always felt for years it lingered that I should pay it forward. And coming to Florida and the American Legion here and the Honor Guard really helped me put it together more in my head. Instead of talking about something and writing a check and sending it to VFW, American Legion, DAV, do something, write the check and participate. And that's what I did with the Honor Guard, Patriot Plaza. And that's why I'm here today, just because there are so many veteran stories like mine, non-combat related. We did our time too.
Of course.
We filled a slot for somebody that didn't want to go or went to Canada, whatever he did. But so the idea of paying it forward is something I'm very serious about. And I'm trying to get other veterans to tell their story to encourage other people with acts of kindness. If you think about it, what does it take to give blood, write a letter to a veteran, do hospice? These are all a way to pay it forward, whether you were a combat veteran or not. So my you don't have to be a veteran to pay it forward, but you should do some form of civic duty.
Yeah.
And civic duty today is fading from the public arena as a responsibility. There's no more civic duty thoughts anymore. Your right to vote, protest. Veterans protect that. We protect that. I mean, you don't realize it, but we protect all these freedoms you have. And everybody just takes it for granted. And I think it's less than 0.5% join the military. When the military gets out, a lot of people don't realize it's hard to get a job. I talk to many young veterans, your age, and they're in their 30s, and people look at them. Well, he's a combat guy, something wrong. Maybe he's blah, blah. And you did your time, and you're filling out an application, and you're so savvy. Like veterans think differently because they have better judgment values. They know how to make a decision quicker.
Yeah.
They know right from wrong. You go into a corporate scene, and I've had people tell me this, they feel threatened. You go into a corporate scene as a veteran, and you're looked at as like you got a college grad with a guy with an MBA. Your degree in knowledge as a veteran is more valuable to a corporation, but they feel threatened. You go in for a job, you're quick to make decisions, you shine quicker, which is not good for the hierarchy that's there. They kind of, not that they frown on it, but they don't pull you in like they should. And a lot of corporations, I've done a lot of research on this, they have a box to check. Oh, we hired 100 veterans. How many stayed out of that 100? Maybe 5.
Yeah.
And the reason they didn't stay is that they weren't made comfortable. You expect them to hit the ground running. And a lot of them, people feel threatened by having them there. And this I was told by people working in big corporations who are veterans, bringing people in. So veterans think differently, so you have to give them credit for what they give us in this country. And I think civic duty is something that has to be enforced more. And that's why these stories, the Veteran History Project for Congressman Stubbe, is so important. people love a good story, and every veteran's got one.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have to be combat related, as I said earlier. They can be humorous. And think about it. If you go into the military at 20 and you come out at 40, you got a pension.
Yeah.
You double dip. You get another job. And but I just had a relative 5 years in the submarine corps, submarine service. He should have stayed in. Family background not good, not stable. He would have got a $30,000 bonus.
Mm-hmm.
I said to him, $30,000. You put that in there.
Back then, that was a lot of money.
Well, he fell in love, and I think that's what happened. But the idea is that the bonuses aren't around anymore now because the enlistment is up, I believe.
Yeah, I think they did bring the bonuses back to help out. I'm not sure, though.
They're not 30 anymore. But
No.
the idea is that if you're a veteran and you do 20, you get a trade. But these, and of course, we all have trouble. I go to schools, and they don't want me there because I'm recruiting students, and which is not factual.
No.
I'm there to tell a story. I'm not there to recruit you to.
Right, because you're usually there with the organization, right?
I'm there just to tell our story and that. But many schools, except Florida, Pineview School in particular, Venice School, Student Leadership Academy, they're all very open-minded, and others. The Comus Element, they're more open and welcome to have you on the property. They're not looking at you as somebody trying to recruit.
Right.
And in fact, the American Legion Honor Guard and the American Legion Medal Program, we go to the schools and we present the medal to these young students. When we mention in the audience, are there any veterans in the audience? And you'd be surprised, and I make them stand up. No, don't put your hand up. Please stand up. And many times after the ceremonies, I have these families come up to me. After the gym is empty, they make it a point to stand there, wait to me, say hello to me, whatever. Because how often are they recognized?
Right.
You see it on TV a lot, but that's all different than actually meeting a guy in person.
Now, you have two siblings. You said two brothers, right?
Two brothers.
One of them was in the military also?
My brother Thomas was in Fort Gordon, Georgia. He was going to be a machine gunner. And, I wrote him a letter saying, listen, you got to fill out a paper there saying you got a brother there already. Mm-hmm. Your time might not your tour might not turn out well.
So how did your parents feel about both of you being?
Ironically, my parents, when I went in and after meeting you and having this history project, they never spoke to me about it.
You'd be shocked how many people tell me that from
Nothing.
The Vietnam era.
And it wasn't until now that I realized that the night I left, I did a foolish thing. I stayed out. I stayed out drinking pretty late with all my neighborhood friends, and it was a Thursday night, not a good night. And I was supposed to be at the draft board at, I think it's 7 in the morning. I was in bed at 9. My mother, you gotta get up there. What are they gonna do? Send me to Vietnam? I mean, so I got up and I got on a train, and so as I said, my cavalier attitude, and my brothers, I came back. How you doing? It was a different neighborhood in the sense that it kind of maybe made believe it wasn't happening. I often thought about that, but my parents, my mother wrote me every 10 days, and the letters were hysterical. Because she write, your father has that card game every once a month here, and I got to get your brothers up for church, and I have to push them out in the morning. I shared them with my friends, and they couldn't believe it, how much humorous there was. Mm-hmm. And she would write on the top and on the sides, because in Ireland, when you send airmail, it costs more money if there's too much. And my friend says, "Is your mother drinking?" And I would write her on the edges of, So my parents, that English, Irish, German thing, they didn't cry much. They keep, strong upper lip in that. So, I'm sure my mother was worried. My father, they were appreciative, but not a word when I got back. What's your experiences? Even my brother's like, you were home. Okay, nice to have you back. And,
at least you're home, right?
Yeah, and you're walking in the neighborhood and people say, "Where you been, Joe?" Well, I've been away. So,
tell me a little bit about going to basic training in Fort Hood, right?
That was, I reflect on it more now. It was a tank unit training people for the infantry. They had no clue. They really didn't.
They
we,
still don't.
We got away with stuff that I couldn't tell you. I have a couple of sergeants who are really nice, but they were pushing us through.
Mm-hmm.
As far as assembling your weapon, and I had a teacher, of course, of me. O'Brien was there. I forget. He couldn't walk and chew gum at the same time, and he'd have somebody else do it, and it wasn't really right. We thought it was fun because we were beating the system, but you weren't beating the system once you got over there.
Yeah.
If you didn't know how to maintain your weapon, now here, tank unit training, and I could hear the sergeants talking. I got to remember, I was 22 years old at the time. I was older, and there's knuckleheads, and we were all New Yorkers, so we did a lot of push-ups because we didn't know what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
But they were just pushing troops out, just pushing you out, you know. And it didn't realize till I got back that that's what they were doing at that time, which was terrible.
Yeah.
The buildup was they kept pushing and pushing and pushing and trying to get people just bodies over there, and without training them, that was wrong. It was really bad.
Was there any sort of training when you got in country once you got there?
Nothing. I took 3 days to get to my unit. 3 days, and you could have went AWOL there. They wouldn't have cared. Nobody cared. You know, I was on K, and I don't know where else I went. I remember C-130s get down. No, this is where you got to go. And it was just, and then finally I got one guy, humorously enough, Italian guy from Brooklyn, and he only had like 10 days left, and he was a wise guy, and he was kidding the Irish from the Bronx, saying, yeah, you know, and the idea is, I want to do you a favor. I said, don't do me a favor, because I was tired, and, you know, and I want to do you a favor, and he did me a solid. He saw on my orders was secret clearance. I never thought about it. Mm-hmm. And he hooked me up with a colonel. I never did guard duty. Nothing. That was a gift. Mm-hmm. And it was all because of this one guy who had 10 days, and he tortured me, I'll be honest with you. He made fun of me, Irish, potato head, all these nicknames. He did it, and the guy and the clerk next to him, and pouring rain, they're on milk boxes there. He says, he's got 10 days left. Let it go. He doesn't care. And he hooked me up, but it took me 3 days to get there. And I said, later on, I mean, did anybody care? I mean, you know, and in fact, one incident, when I think about it, I thought I was being smart. I went up to the sergeant. I said, Sarge, you know, oh, you're from New York. I guess they could tell you the way you talked. Mm-hmm. He said, you know, I got to get out of here. I'm taking 2 or 3 days to get here. It's my 3rd day here. Oh, I'll help you out. Where are you from, New York? Oh, yeah, no problem. Don't anybody know. I should have known. He says, tomorrow, get up here and come over here, and sends me out to a plane, and they're wearing masks. And it was all, the smell of death was coming off the plane. And it was a body bag plane coming back to Saigon. And I went back, and he thought it was, Air Force, Army, a little bit of a, zinger. Mm-hmm. And then finally later in that afternoon, I got to my base. But these are the stories that every veteran should tell, because it's a bit of humor, but how it makes you think differently later in life. Mm-hmm. And I can't emphasize more than why veterans think differently, and why we should be maybe given a little more slack for what you think might be inappropriate behavior.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you experienced it in your time in the military.
Plenty of times. Yes, yeah. I have.
Yeah.
Was there any sort of leadership or just leader that comes to mind, good leadership that you had while you were out there, or just in the military in general?
Colonel Sutherland in Vietnam. He came in as a private, worked his way up. He was great. There was no nonsense with him. I did my job. He was the one who called my mother when I got home. Mm-hmm. He was just, I was very impressed with him. And then I had a guy, Colonel Ramsey, come in after him, and I got in trouble with him. I ran a Jeep off a road, and I red badge of courage, got a little cut in my arm, and he laced into me about, they used to put oil all over the roads to keep the dust from coming up. So he said I was being callous with the Jeep, but Sutherland was the best. I had a Sergeant Meeser in Texas. He was very good. but they were leaders.
Yeah.
Let's see, they were good. I can't think of anybody else at the time. But you got to remember, they were pushing us through.
Yeah, yeah.
And then when I lucked out, I lucked out, and I ran into some nice enlisted people there. Guy, Massachusetts. That's the whole thing in the military. You're all different walks of life, ages, nationalities. That's what you don't get in the workforce. You get it there because you're forced to react and behave yourself and learn how to take an insult or a jab or whatever. And that's why I think veterans think differently. They don't react or overreact unless they have to. And you got to think of all the decisions that veterans make when they're in service. Mm-hmm. And I was never in combat, but you make a left and the other guy makes a right. He doesn't come back and you come back.
Exactly.
And that's why they have such a good camaraderie, because they're there. They're not there for the mission so much. They're there for each other. Yeah. And that's what you learn in the service. You're there to help the guy with you, next to you, whoever he is. Like when I was in Fort Hood, I wanted to get out badly, and I had a company clerk walk my orders up, Division Corps, get it out of there because I was told that my first sergeant major, would quash my request to get out. Oh, okay. He's not going to let you go, Reynolds, because you trained him. He doesn't like New York because you trained. You're doing a good job. He's not going to let you go. Right. So I had 3 other company clerks walk it up for each division, and when he came back, you're not going, Reynolds. He ripped it up, called up, and too late, it was gone already. So wow. Yeah, he wasn't. Even in the morning I left, Sergeant Miller, I want to say goodbye to him, and he was furious, And the Sergeant Sturms and Spikes, 2 World War II guys, said, he'll be here, Reynolds, he'll be here, and I get along real good with them because I could talk to them. They were pretty funny guys. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, he showed up, went to the safe, took him had to call his wife up for the combination. The combination is safe with her measurements. Can you imagine? So he opens up the safe and he gave me this crest that I still have it. They never gave out to anybody. Now, here's a guy that didn't like me, hated me because when I first came, because I was in New York, I bonded with him. And then when I pulled a quickie on him, it was a bit of a smart maneuver to under the radar to get to Vietnam, which was dumb. $50 a month. You want to go to a combat zone? But he gave me this thing and he wished me well. He was a recovering alcoholic which I found out later, from Korea. He left about shortly after I left because he was retiring. He didn't want to break in another company clerk. And he went to a home for runaways and that. And he worked there for 2 years. I got 2 letters from him. Good luck, and that was it, the last I heard from him, which I thought was pretty nice for a guy that was furious at you.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, so.
That's very nice of him. So when you got out, your last day of service, what was that like? Like when you were about to get, did you feel lost in the world? Were you excited? Were you happy? What was your feeling?
I felt great. I to be honest, I came back and just started drinking. You came back to a neighborhood that was just unique. It was a unique throwback to hanging out on the corner. It was just, you came back and you just started drinking. And nobody asked you where you were. It was just kind of amazing. Just, you went back in and where you been, Joe? A couple of guys knew. My cousin Richard, a lieutenant in Vietnam, was killed. And I had just gotten out and he was killed. And we were going to funerals quite a bit in the neighborhood. But it was just like softball, stickball. We had girls in our community writing once a month a newsletter from the neighborhood, softball scores. I actually gave it to the guy who did the Greatest Beer Run. I gave all those letters to him to put into the film. Oh, wow. Yeah. Joanna Malloy, and I gave it to her. And but the bottom line was that I came back and it was like I never left. That's great. It was weird feeling. And, and then I went to the Bronx and opened up, my father had a bar, we renovated it, and I kind of left the neighborhood. But I ran a neighborhood reunion for 17 years. in Pete's Tavern in Manhattan, the oldest bar in the city.
So all the guys that went to Vietnam, you guys would
Well,
get
no,
together?
no. I mean, it
Or
was
just
some
any
guys.
of the veterans?
Some guys. No, guys I grew up with. Some didn't go. Some did go. But it was 17 years, and we just went upstairs with 25, 35 guys every year. But I had a list of I don't know how many that I called, and some would show. It was cash, pay at the door, typical. And it was a lot of fun. That's why when I left to go to Florida, they couldn't believe I was leaving.
Right.
I was a real New York City guy. Or you're leaving to go to Florida. I used to kid people that when I was bartending in the Bronx who would have parents in Florida. Or when I worked in this place, Charlie's Inn in the Bronx, great bar. After I'd sold my place, and the old timers would come up from Florida. I said, Florida's God's waiting room. Kidding them, which was not too smart, but Florida. I have to go to my doctors. Florida is great. You don't need to go to New York for your doctors.
Nope.
Everything's here, and that's why Florida's booming.
Mm-hmm.
But that's, like I said, all this good luck for me and humor I can share with you now. I just feel a very strong passion to let people know what veterans do and to pay it back and emphasize places like Patriot Plaza.
Mm-hmm.
I find it very important that museum there, that outdoor artwork made possible by the Patterson Foundation, another great nonprofit,
Mm-hmm.
that we should know more about it. So that's why I was a tour guide there. And, part of my pay it forward.
So I know you said pay it forward because you felt that other guys weren't so lucky. When did that start? Like, when did you want to start doing, like, actually motivated you to get involved with the American Legion and start doing the things that you do now?
Well, what I did on my own was build a website that went nowhere. It took me 10 years, and I had people scam me, take my money. And it was basically about resume. It turned out to be just my resume. It was going veterans, darn computer guys my age, Vietnam era.
Mm-hmm.
They're not into computers. They can't get on a plane unless they have a granddaughter to get them a boarding pass. So it was going nowhere.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I really hit. Now I was an American Legion member up in White Plains,
Okay.
but they were struggling too with membership, and and I was working full time. So it wasn't until I really landed in Florida that it really clicked. And honor God at Patriot Plaza, and Patriot Plaza really opened my eyes to what the potential you could do for veterans down here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the largest states, I think, for concentration of veterans.
Yes.
Here, Texas and California, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel that, the civic duty end of it, people should realize that veterans gave you all these opportunities for these freedoms. And you got to pay it back in some small way. It could be holding a door for somebody, or I'll give you an example. A woman was in the dollar store, but a big thing, and I happened to have my uniform. I was coming from a burial, and I offered to take this thing out, huge box out. I made 2 trips. She was like, oh. I'm looking at her like, no big deal, honey. I just, But she was really taking, wow,
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And I'm like, but people don't expect it anymore.
Yeah, common courtesies have been gone for years.
It's gone. I see people walking. You see people rushing to get out of a restaurant, and they're walking by old people or somebody in a walker, like trying to, excuse me. So that's my thing. Is just pay it forward. Simple gestures of, and you know how good you feel, when you give back. Small little thing like that. I came back to the house and I said, this woman really thought I did something.
Mm-hmm.
And it was nothing. So
now, so you're part of the honor guard. Let's talk, like, how many I don't want to say, I guess, burials have you been a part of, do you think?
Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds.
And were you doing that in New York previous to you coming
nothing.
down here?
I did nothing like this till I came to Florida.
Okay.
I used to keep a list of all the burials I did on my computer, and I just stopped doing it. I mean, with two in a day sometimes, which is hard, and you're out in the hot sun and that stuff, and we're not spring chickens anymore.
Right.
I mean, we're honored to do it, but the humor part is when we fire the 7 volleys and the 21 shells go, and you take the shells, you put them in a bag, and you give them to the family. You got to see us trying to pick up the shells sometimes. You're leaning on each other's rifles, and people don't. It's not a military to do that, but people we have to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, so one guy said, why don't we get a magnet or something? And one guy said, magnets don't work on brass, which I kind of didn't realize. But, and there's a certain camaraderie among the honor guard people. They feel the same way. I wouldn't do this unless I wanted to do it. It's not, we're all volunteers. We don't get paid. Mm-hmm. We pay for, uniforms, or we try and get people to donate towards our uniforms. But this is all voluntary, all of it. Even the medal program and that Don Farrell, my friend, does. He's a swift boat guy. These are all volunteers. Mm-hmm. We volunteer. I was doing 4 medals. He was doing 5. And it's hard to get volunteers today. Everybody talks. Nobody steps up. I mean, I'd be honest with you. Oh, yeah. And then you ask them, well, I got this to do, that to do. But that they want to come in and join the festivities. So
I understand that sometimes. What is one thing from your military service that impacted your feelings about the military in general?
Well, I guess I keep going back to my good luck tour. And then one day they come in Quignon, they needed blood. And we ran over there to give blood, and it was a bad ambush not far away. And I went by the huts, and they had the POWs in there. I haven't thought about this in years. And there was a young VC in there who was missing a hand. And I looked at him, and he was like a teenager. I mean, he's 14, 15. He looked to me. Mm-hmm. I'm saying, man, this is the enemy, And and then the fact that they were. I think the thing that probably upset me the most is I don't want to get into it too much, but we were almost like live bait. You were sending soldiers out for them to attack you, and then so they send in the helicopters and take care of them. I mean, it was a tough situation, and that's why I really felt guilty every time the helicopters would come in for the medical unit next to me there. They were coming in all the time, and you're typing, and you're like, helicopters coming in with guys hurt, and you're pumping away on a typewriter. But that was they went that way, and I went this way. Mm-hmm. And that's luck and timing in life. That's why I always say veterans think differently. And it stays with me, decision making, and a lot of us come back, not me, but a lot of guys come back with PTSD, and it's not good. Mm-hmm. Not good at all.
I understand that. Did you create any friendships while you were in that you still have now? Is there a few guys that you've gotten in contact with years later?
No, honestly, because your orders come in and you're gone. You don't hang out. They tell you you're gone, Reynolds, and the next morning you're gone. He could be on R&R or whatever. And one guy, Stan Fugel from Massachusetts, I hooked up with him once afterwards. Another guy from Eagle Butte, Montana, I tried to reach out to him a few times. But when your orders came in to go home,
you were wanting to go
especially
home.
The guys in the field, a helicopter would come in, and you got a guys out patrolling. This is what I was told. You knew his last name, his nickname, whatever, but you didn't. And that's the difference in this war in Vietnam and in World War II. You came home on a troop ship, 3-4 months, maybe another 2 months. You played cards, you exchanged names and phone numbers and all that kind of stuff. In the Vietnam era, you were gone. You the next morning. 3 days later, I was walking the streets of Inwood. 3 days later.
Wow.
I mean, it was crazy. Fort Lewis. To get there, Fort Lewis, roughly 3 days. I was back walking like nothing happened. And
did it affect you at all at that time?
Yeah.
Did you kind of feel like you were in a void? Yeah. Yeah, I know that feeling when you get out is very different, especially in those things.
In fact, I remember a guy so enthralled with the military. and he wanted a field jacket. He wanted boots and that. And by that time, my cousin was killed. Michael Morrow, Tommy Minogue was killed before McGoldrick. All these guys were killed, and he kept hammering me. I went to my closet and took everything and gave it to him. I never forget it. And to this day, I don't know if there were photos. I don't have one. I don't have one photo. I can't. I look at me in the military. I wasn't into that. You know, I don't know. You thought you were being cool, even when you graduate from basic. Everybody takes a picture.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm not going to do that. That's not cool. I don't know how foolish that was. But that was that inward mentality, that macho kind of stuff. And then you get over it and you realize, you know, you gotta produce. You know, but I threw everything away, and I think that's because I was disgusted with the way things were going. And even with all the softball and things weren't going good. And,
Right.
And I remember Walter Cronkite, when he got on there, all is lost. Ted Offensive. Ted Offensive. I got a phone call. I said, what? And you turn on and I say, wow. And yet we won that battle, but we lost it on TV, and that's where the media comes in for me. The media portrayal of the veterans today is like we're broken, we're this, that, you know, and I'm not happy with that. So many veterans are on and successfully became businessmen, successful in different walks of life, and some had bankruptcies, divorces, but they went on and made it work. But all you see is broken, you know, not broken, like negativity in a sense. Whereas just so many veterans who are suffering give back. They volunteer in their own community. They don't just complain. So, you know, that's kind of my mantra. We went on and successfully opened businesses. We did things. We went through bankruptcies, divorces, and we still made it work.
Of course. Yeah, that's definitely something that needs to be shared a little bit more. I agree with you.
Well, if you talk to a lot of people who are very successful businessmen, they don't tell you. I got a few guys I knew in a country club. You didn't know they were in the military. Not a word until I stumbled upon one guy. I'll mention his name. I'm still in touch with him. Two guys, never mention it. It's like it's a bad thing, you know. Corporate world, they don't, you know what I mean? So there's so many veterans with good stories, successful businessmen, that stay away from it. Yeah. It's like a time in their life.
Yeah.
And then they go away from it. But that's why I think this veteran, Congressman Stubbe's Veteran History Project is so important, to get it out there and follow through and encourage veterans to come. And you said you'd go down and be willing to go down to,
of course, yeah, I'd be willing
American
to go down.
Legion Post 159 and just, you know, let them talk to you. Because I think once you get one or two doing it, more and more will step in.
All right, so I got one more question for you. If there's one thing you could tell everyone about veterans that you wish they knew more, what would it be?
Veterans, I've already said this, veterans think differently. And I think when you thank a veteran for something, what are you thanking them for? Think about that. Thank you very much for your service. What did I do for you? What are you thanking me for? And I've had this asked for a few people. They have no idea. Which I was in Grand Central Station for Veterans Day, doing my thing a little bit, and they'll come up and thank you. But the idea is that they don't know what you're thanking them for. You know, very nice. So what are you thanking me for? Well, we protect your freedoms, and they don't get that aspect of it at all. And when they thank a veteran, they keep running instead of engaging him. My whole thing, say, where are you from? You know, we have a few people, we went out and did that. They love that. When you take that extra step, where you been, are you going to get in, you're going to stay out, you're in the National Guard, or what are you going to do? And you engage them more. But thank you for your service is almost like a way to, you know, you're clearing your conscience. I'm moving through, goodbye. It doesn't doesn't, I don't want to say for everybody, but it doesn't ring as solid as it could if you spent a minute or two. Where you're from, how long you've been in, what are you doing, what do you plan on doing when you get out. Just do a little bit of extra, that's all, instead of boom and out the door. And like I said, veterans think differently, and you should ask them why. That's, to me, is why. Why do we think differently? Pursue that. But 99% of the people won't do it. Either they're embarrassed out of guilt, which a lot of people are, and I don't want to focus on that, but a lot of them feel guilty. They avoided the draft, or there's a certain amount of guilt when you talk to a veteran.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea is, my thing is that don't feel guilty. Just ask him a little bit about his life and why he joined, or and if he doesn't want to engage you, fine. But if he wants to engage, and I found most of them will, especially if, like they got National Guard in Grand Central Station. What are they doing there? What do you think you're doing? I said to one guy there, what do you think that veteran's doing here? I don't know. He's protecting you because the crime in this city is not good. You think he's here on parade? Of course, I had to back it up a little bit, but they had no idea why they were there.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing in down at Grand Central. And anyway, I just feel that people should realize more of what we do and why we do it. And maybe do some civic duty. Civic duty is the big one for me. Pay it forward, for what we do for you. And that's pretty much it.
Cool. Well, I want to say it was definitely an honor and a privilege to interview you, and thank you for your service.
Thank you very much for having me. And Congressman Stubbe, I hope your Veteran History Project really blossoms, because I'm going to work very hard for you to get it done. With Will Thompson here, your representative, your aide, because I think you're onto something that's really, really good.
Thank you.